There is something deep inside every human heart that keeps searching. No matter where a person lives, no matter what language they speak, no matter how much success or wealth they gain, there remains a quiet question that refuses to disappear. It is the question of truth. It is the question of purpose. It is the question of why we are here and where we are going. People search for answers in many places. Some search in knowledge, believing that if they can learn enough, they will finally understand life. Others search in success, thinking that if they climb high enough, they will discover satisfaction at the top. Some search in pleasure, hoping that the next experience will fill the emptiness inside. Yet the strange thing about the human heart is that even when it gains these things, the longing does not disappear. The heart continues to search because it was created to hear something greater than the noise of the world. From the very beginning of time, humanity has been reaching upward, asking questions that echo through every generation. Philosophers have asked them. Kings have asked them. Farmers and workers have asked them. Young people standing at the doorway of life have asked them. And elderly people nearing the end of their journey have asked them as well. The reason these questions never fade is because they point toward a truth that the human soul instinctively knows. Deep within us is the awareness that life is not an accident, that existence has meaning, and that somewhere beyond our confusion there is a voice that speaks with clarity and authority. The remarkable truth is that God has not remained silent. The creator of the universe has not left humanity wandering in darkness without direction. God has spoken. His message has echoed through history, through scripture, through conscience, and through the quiet whisper that reaches into the human heart when everything else becomes still. Yet many people spend their lives searching everywhere except the place where the answer has already been given. Imagine a traveler lost in a vast desert. The sun is beating down, the horizon stretches endlessly, and every direction looks the same. The traveler walks and walks, hoping that the next hill will reveal a city or a river or some sign of life. Days pass and the search continues, yet all the while there is a voice calling from a distance, giving clear directions toward safety. But if the traveler refuses to listen, the problem is not that guidance was never offered. The problem is that the voice was ignored. This is the story of humanity in many ways. The world is filled with noise. There are voices telling us what to believe, voices telling us what success looks like, voices promising happiness if we simply follow the path they offer. Advertisements shout for attention. Social media fills our minds with endless opinions. Culture constantly changes its definition of truth. In the middle of all these voices, the voice of God often becomes the quietest sound in a very loud world, yet the voice of God carries a power that no other voice possesses. It is the voice that spoke the universe into existence. It is the voice that designed the human soul. It is the voice that understands every fear, every struggle, every hidden thought that lives within the heart of a person. When God speaks, he does not speak as someone guessing about life. He speaks as the one who created life itself. Every human heart is searching because it was designed to respond to that voice. The longing for truth is not a weakness. It is not a mistake. It is evidence that the human soul was created with a connection to something eternal. When people feel empty despite their achievements, when they feel restless despite their comfort, when they feel unsatisfied despite their success, it is often because the deepest part of their being is still waiting to hear the message that only God can give. History shows us that when people finally listen to that message, everything begins to change. Hearts that were filled with confusion begin to see with clarity. Lives that were moving in circles suddenly discover direction. People who felt lost discover purpose that is greater than themselves. The message of God does not merely inform the mind, it awakens the soul. But the tragedy of the modern world is not that God has stopped speaking. The tragedy is that people have stopped listening. Many are too busy to pause and hear what God might be saying. Others believe they already know enough and have no need for divine guidance. Some are distracted by the endless entertainment and activity that fills every moment of their day. In a world that never seems to slow down, silence has become rare, and without silence it becomes difficult to hear the voice that speaks quietly but powerfully to the heart. Still, the message of God remains available to every person. It does not belong to a certain nation, a certain culture, or a certain generation. It is a message for humanity itself. Whether someone stands in a crowded city or walks alone through the countryside, whether someone feels strong or completely broken, The message of God reaches toward them with the same invitation to listen. And when a person begins to listen, something remarkable happens inside the heart. The search that once felt endless begins to make sense. The questions that once seemed impossible to answer start to find clarity. The restless wandering of the soul begins to slow as truth settles into place, like light breaking through a long night of darkness. There is a voice that speaks to the human heart, a voice that is not loud like the noise of the world, yet it carries more authority than every voice combined. It is the voice of God calling to humanity. From the beginning of time, God has been speaking, guiding, warning, inviting, and revealing truth to those who are willing to listen. Yet one of the greatest tragedies in all of life is not that God has remained silent, but that so many people hear his voice and choose to ignore it. Every person at some moment in life senses the gentle pull within the soul. It may come during a quiet night, when the mind is finally free from distractions. It may come during a moment of crisis, when the heart suddenly realizes how fragile life really is. It may come through the words of Scripture, through the conviction of conscience, or through the realization that something in life is missing. In those moments, God is not distant. He is near, speaking with clarity and truth, inviting the human heart to turn toward him. Yet the human response is often hesitation. Sometimes people hear the truth but delay responding because they believe there will always be more time. They tell themselves that one day they will think about spiritual things. One day they will listen more carefully. One day they will change the direction of their lives. But the danger of delay is that it slowly turns into indifference. A voice ignored today becomes easier to ignore tomorrow, and a heart that once felt conviction may eventually grow quiet and unmoved. There's a powerful lesson in the history of humanity. Time and again, people have been warned, guided, and called by God, yet many chose to walk in the opposite direction. They followed their own understanding rather than the wisdom of the one who created them. They trusted their own desires rather than the truth that had been revealed to them. At first, the decision seemed harmless, even reasonable. But over time, the consequences became clear. When the voice of truth is ignored, confusion begins to grow. When the call of God is dismissed, the direction of life slowly begins to drift. Think about a ship traveling across the ocean. If the captain ignores the compass and chooses to follow his own guess about direction, the ship may appear to move smoothly for a while. The waters may be calm, and the sky may be clear, giving the illusion that everything is under control. But without the guidance of the compass, the ship is slowly drifting away from its destination. By the time the mistake becomes obvious, the distance traveled in the wrong direction may be far greater than expected. The same thing happens in the life of a person who hears the voice of God but chooses not to respond. Life continues, days pass, responsibilities fill the schedule, and the outward appearance may look perfectly normal. Yet beneath the surface, something important has been ignored. The guidance that could have brought clarity and purpose has been set aside. The truth that could have shaped decisions and protected the heart has been overlooked. Ignoring the voice of God does not usually feel dramatic at first. It often happens through small choices. A moment of conviction is pushed aside. A truth that challenges personal desires is dismissed. A warning that calls for change is avoided because it feels uncomfortable. Little by little, the distance grows between the human heart and the voice that was meant to guide it. The tragedy is not only that truth is ignored, but that the human soul begins to lose the sensitivity that once recognized it. When a person repeatedly refuses to listen, the inner awareness that once felt strong may grow weaker. What once stirred the heart may no longer seem urgent. What once felt like a clear message may become easy to overlook. The danger is not that God stops speaking, but that the human heart becomes accustomed to silence because it has trained itself not to respond. Yet in this tragedy, there is a powerful reminder of the patience and mercy of God. Again and again throughout history, God has continued to call people back. He has spoken through circumstances, through Scripture, through the lives of others, and through the quiet conviction that returns even after it has been ignored many times. His message does not disappear simply because it was rejected before. His call continues because his desire is not to condemn humanity, but to lead it toward truth and life. Still, the responsibility rests with each individual. Hearing the voice of God is not the same as responding to it. Many people are aware of truth, yet awareness alone does not transform a life. There must be a moment when the heart chooses to listen fully, to accept what has been heard, and to allow that truth to shape the direction of the future. The world often encourages the opposite response. It tells people to trust only their own feelings, to follow whatever path seems easiest or most comfortable, to treat truth as something flexible or personal. But the voice of God calls humanity to something greater than comfort. It calls people to truth that stands firm even when opinions change. It calls people to a purpose that reaches beyond temporary success and touches eternity. When a person ignores that voice, the loss is deeper than they may realize. It is not simply the loss of guidance for a single decision or a single season of life. It is the loss of a relationship with the one who understands the human soul completely. It is the loss of the wisdom that could have protected the heart from many regrets. It is the loss of the direction that could have led to a life shaped by truth, meaning, and eternal purpose. The greatest tragedy is not failure, weakness, or struggle. The greatest tragedy is hearing the voice of God and choosing to walk away as though it never spoke. There comes a moment in the life of a person when the noise of the world grows quiet enough for something deeper to be heard. It may not happen in a crowded place or during a moment of excitement. Often it happens when life slows down, when the heart becomes honest, and when the soul begins to realize that everything it has been chasing has not fully satisfied the longing within. In that moment, a person may begin to truly listen to the message that God has been speaking all along. And when that message is heard with sincerity, it carries the power to transform everything about the direction of a human life. Listening to God is not merely hearing words with the ears. Many people hear spiritual truths throughout their lives. They hear sermons, they read scripture, they listen to advice from others who speak about faith and purpose. Yet hearing alone does not always reach the heart. True listening happens when a person allows the message of God to move beyond information and become something personal and living within the soul. When that kind of listening begins, the mind starts to see life differently. The things that once seemed most important may slowly lose their power. The goals that once defined success may begin to appear small compared to the greater purpose that God reveals. A person who truly listens to God starts to understand that life is not only about temporary achievements or possessions, but about a deeper relationship with the one who created them and gave meaning to their existence. The mind, which was once filled with confusion or uncertainty, begins to experience clarity. For many people, life feels like a constant search for direction. They move from one decision to another, hoping they're choosing the right path, yet always feeling unsure about the future. When a person listens to God as message, something remarkable begins to happen inside their thinking. Truth begins to replace confusion. Wisdom begins to guide decisions. The mind becomes anchored in something stable rather than drifting from one opinion to another. This transformation does not happen because a person suddenly becomes perfect or gains all knowledge. It happens because the foundation of their thinking begins to change. Instead of relying only on personal understanding, they begin to trust the wisdom that comes from God. Instead of allowing the world to define truth for them, they begin to see life through the perspective of the one who designed it. But the change does not stop with the mind. When a person truly listens to God, the heart also begins to experience renewal. The human heart carries many burdens. It carries regrets from the past, fears about the future, and wounds created by disappointment or failure. Many people try to hide these things behind success, activity, or distractions, yet the weight remains within them. The message of God reaches into those hidden places of the heart. It brings hope where there was once discouragement. It brings forgiveness where there was once guilt. It brings peace where there was once anxiety. When the heart begins to accept the truth that God offers, it is like a heavy burden being lifted. The person who once felt trapped by mistakes or broken by circumstances begins to realize that their story is not finished and that a new direction is possible. This renewal of the heart changes the way a person sees themselves and the way they see others. Instead of living with constant frustration or bitterness, the heart begins to soften. Compassion grows where anger once lived. Gratitude begins to replace constant dissatisfaction. The person who once felt empty begins to discover a sense of purpose that fills the space where emptiness once existed. As the mind is renewed and the heart begins to change, the entire course of life starts to move in a new direction. Decisions are no longer guided only by personal desires or temporary advantages. They begin to reflect the truth that has taken root within the soul. The path a person walks begins to align with the purpose that God intended for them. This transformation can be seen throughout history in the lives of individuals who truly listened when God spoke. Ordinary people discovered extraordinary courage when they responded to God's message. Lives that once seemed insignificant became powerful examples of faith, service, and purpose. The change did not come from human strength alone. It came from the moment they allowed the voice of God to guide their steps. Listening to God does not mean that life becomes free from challenges. Difficulties still come, questions still arise, and the journey of life continues to require faith and perseverance. But the difference is that a person who listens to God no longer walks through life without direction. They move forward with a sense of purpose that gives meaning to every step, even when the path is not easy. The transformation that begins with listening continues to grow over time. Each decision shaped by truth strengthens the foundation of a person's life. Each moment of faith deepens the relationship between the human heart and the God who speaks to it. What began as a simple act of listening becomes a journey of continual change, guiding the mind, renewing the heart, and shaping the future in ways that once seemed impossible. The power of God's message is not limited to a single moment or a single experience. It continues working within a person as long as they remain open to hearing and following what God reveals. A life that once wandered without clear direction can become a life guided by truth, strengthened by faith, and driven by a purpose far greater than personal ambition. The simple act of truly listening to God has the power to redirect the entire course of a human life and lead the soul toward the meaning it was always searching to find.